Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the panel for being here. Rhode Island, I think, was pretty hurt by NAFTA. I think you're seeing some interesting views across party lines here because this is an area where geography and economy matter. And I can remember going to manufacturing facilities and seeing holes in the floor and asking what they were. Those were the places where the machinery had been unbolted from the floor of the plant so that it could be shipped to Central America. So the same product for the same customer on the same machine could be made in a different country, thanks to NAFTA. So I don't see this as a very significant change. I agree with the ranking member that this is just NAFTA 2.0. You can call it whatever you want, but it looks a damn lot like NAFTA. And if you focus particularly on the environmental side, which I tend to, this is really pretty bleak. In this day and age, if you can believe it, this agreement doesn't even mention climate change. I mean, I don't know how grown-ups can write an agreement in this environment and not, that addresses environmental issues and not mention it. Second, it singles out the polluting industries to protect with ISDS so that they remain able to go and bully and intimidate small countries that might try to regulate their pollution, which is, I think, really unnecessary and inappropriate. I take as a signal the area of marine plastic debris, because the area of marine plastic debris is the one environmental area in which the Trump administration has tried to give itself some degree of environmental credibility. We've had bills come through this body unanimously. It's been very bipartisan. The president gave very strong remarks about marine plastic waste. It's a tremendous problem, he said. Thousands and thousands of tons of this debris float onto our shores after it's dumped into the oceans by other countries. This is a tremendous problem. Thousands and thousands of tons of garbage comes to us. So I start from the proposition that on this issue, they're putting their best foot forward. This is how they're really going to try to make up for the environmental disaster that most of the Trump administration is. But once you look behind what the president says, once you look behind what Secretary Pompeo says, once you look behind what Trade Representative Lighthizer says, it ain't good. Last year at the G7 meeting in Canada, the U.S. refused to sign the Oceans Plastic Charter. In March at the UN Environment Conference in Nairobi, U.S. interference produced non-binding proposals and weak targets, and the U.S. then rejected even the final watered-down declaration. In June, the G20 failed to agree on concrete measures on marine debris, again reportedly due to U.S. intransigence. Most recently, EPA Administrator Wheeler pushed to have OECD member countries be exempt from new rules agreed to under the Basel Convention, already agreed to, that prevent the dumping of plastic waste without consent. The headlines that I see on this: U.S. halts tighter rules on plastic waste trade. G20 urges voluntary action on marine plastic crisis, with the United States blocking demands for global target. One unexpected sticking point at the G7, plastic pollution in the oceans. Why? The Americans didn't want to sign on an oceans charter, which contained targets. They'd hoped the U.S. would agree to take joint action to tackle plastic pollution in the world's ocean, and in the end, it didn't. The communique released at the end of the summit: we, the leaders of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, the United Kingdom, and the European Union, endorsed the G7 Ocean Plastics Charter. Guess who didn't sign? The U.S. Nearly all countries agree to stem the flow of plastic waste into poor nations, not the U.S. U.S. accused of blocking ambitious global action against plastic pollution. March 15th. All of those stories since March. So if this is the way that the Trump administration enforces environmental concerns that it claims to support, then look out for the other environmental enforcements. And as somebody who has been critical of the Obama administration for their incredibly weak enforcement of environmental and labor standards, I see us just going off a cliff. I see no prospect for any serious environmental enforcement. Our companies are going to lose business to polluters and people who dump plastic waste into the rivers and the oceans in other countries. And although there's a lot of big talk from the Oval Office about how this is their big environmental issue, when the rubber hits the road, when the negotiators are working on these agreements, it's always the Trump administration that is the weak link and dragging back against progress. So I just find the whole thing pretty incredible at this point. Thank you.